Hey YouTube, Petey Two Finger here talking about gear again. One thing I notice with some people, um, they'll act like the only thing that's any good is what is on their board right now, and everything else is flipping garbage. It's all junk. And honestly, you'll run into this. Let's not fetishize gear. Like you have to have a $20,000 Dumble with a gold top Les Paul from 1959. Now 58 or a 60, garbage. You got to have that 59 Les Paul, and then a first run Klon signed by Bill Finnegan and cooped. You need that $2,700, $3,000 Klon pedal, and then you're going to have good tone. Otherwise, and to be honest with you, like for most of us, are just doing this to please ourselves at home. If you're in a band or playing on a stage, yeah, that's fantastic. Or like in my case, I'm a not talented guy. I don't have talent. I've worked hard to accomplish my goals, and then I screwed up and lost my fingertips. So tone is in the fingers, the fingies. Ooh, tone. I too. Neatner, neatner, neatner. So if you're like me, you play at home, and then like I try to record an album every year. I got a dozen solo albums. And I call those solo albums because I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm signed by a major label. It's just, do I say song cycle? Or demo, like I'm recording demo songs? Because if I'm saying demo songs, then that sounds like maybe I'm going to take it to a real studio. So they're home recordings. And then, of course, I like to record. I like to film. My dad died when I was 15. And that kind of messed with me where I want to overcompensate and film everything, like have a record of it. It's some weird thing with me. So I film all the time when I perform live, which typically isn't for an audience. So for me to get all like hung up on my tone is like, why? Why? Nobody's listening. I'm doing this for me. And I like what I hear. So that to me, that doesn't that tube amp thing, like fetishizing. I see people do that, and it, like they'll look at the next guy and they'll go, "Well, he's just a bedroom chump. His rig is for beginner. He doesn't have the expensive tube amp and the Les Paul and all that." And to me, that's hokum. It's horsebucky. It's not true. Like you can get the same effect with like a used amp that you got off Craigslist. Like anything with a 12-inch speaker, decent thing, and whatever you got you can usually make it sound pretty good. And this like elitism, this like fetishizing, like having to have this super expensive stuff, for most of us, if you're like me, there's no point in spending that much money because you're just doing it for yourself. Nobody, and then like when you get to the next level of like you're in a bar band, the people who are in uh, the audience, they can't tell the difference. They're not guitar players, so they're not like that dude's using a model or he's a turkey. They're like they they're judging you on your skill on the instrument. Like, can he sing, or can he play? You know. And if you're like really talented and you're all over the fretboard and doing all kinds of trickery, you're going to be able to impress people, or you're just going to be another guitar player. And the thing is with the crowd is no one ever noticed like tone. The only people that care about tone are us, it's musicians. So this stuff that I'm talking about today is just between us guitar players. And it's just something that bothers me is when I hear people trash talk gear. Really, it hurts my feelings for the next guy. And it makes me angry when I see people who maybe they're fortunate enough to have some nice equipment and then they're like acting like they're better because the next guy, like, oh, he's a bedroom player. Like, that's good for a beginner, some kid in his bedroom, but I would never use that. And it's like, well, what about 10 years ago? Weren't you using the same thing? You know, like, does that matter? Like, what you're playing through? And, you know, going back, like, back to the days of the tone sucking pedals, there was some crappy gear in the 90s. There was a lot of digital stuff that made a lot of promises and didn't deliver. People sold all their old fuzz face pedals and stuff they had inherited from their uncles to buy this rack mount gear, and that was all garbage. Uh, I was just talking about saying all garbage. You're not supposed to say that. Here I said it. So I understand a lot of people have this thing about digital or modeling, but I just, when I see guitar players or people, especially online, making these blanket statements like all that modeling is BS. It doesn't work. It's fine for bedroom players, but it's not for me because I'm on another level. And I feel as musicians, we should just honor ourselves by honoring others. Like, you kind of come off, like, if you want to point and laugh at the next guy and just be like, you got to come to church, like, I'm this guitar god and I'm going to battle you, like, whatever that, like, I don't, that's so far from who I am. I'm not a talented guy. I worked to be able to kind of get where I am. And I would never put anybody on the spot or, like, go around making a big deal, like, talking about them behind your back or making videos about them. For me, I see stuff that gets under my skin in the community. I see people like this tone is in the fingers thing. Well, what if you take Tony Iommi's rig and switch it out with Lester Scruggs? Or Nile Rodgers' rig and swap it with Yngwie Malmsteen's? What's going to happen then? So yes, tone is in the fingies. Uh, it is a little bit there, you know, but at the same time, we need our gear. And for some of us, that means compression, overdrive, distortion, EQ, delay, and reverb, with maybe a little chorus or some kind of modulation. And we're talking about like a significant amount of gear to get our sound. So as musicians, I think it's bad to make blanket statements. We need to be honest when we talk about gear. If people are asking us for your opinion, you need to think long and hard about how you're going to word it so what you say doesn't make you come out like you're full of it. Because for me, if I go, oh yeah, you use that Digitech hardwired delay? Pfft, man, no thanks. It's digital. It sounds digital. Yeah, it's Digitech. That's all digital, isn't it? All that stuff. That's for beginners. That's for bedroom players, you know. I use a Klon or a Tube Screamer, you know. and that type of thing, like, specifically me saying this, I've never played a hardwire pedal. None of them. I've never tried them. So that means I can't speak on those. If they're talking about Digitech hardwires, I can't go in there and go, hey, well, what I'm going to recommend, because I've never played one. And this is what I think I see is people forget about that. And they speak out of this, whatever is on my board right now is the best in the world and everything else is effing garbage type of, like, you're up on the soapbox and you're not really thinking, hey, I've only really played through 3 delay pedals in my life. So am I going to get on there and go, oh man, the Strymon is the way to go. That's the way to go. Cause I have a Strymon, but I never tried anything else. Like, And this is what I'm talking about. A huge part of this for me is hearing people like this tone chasing and going on the internet with reviews has turned into this thing of gassing. People are supposed to constantly be like taking out another loan on their house to buy more gear. Like I don't sell gear. I keep what I buy, and I try to not buy anything unless I really have educated myself on that decision. So I'm not saying like I'm arrived and I'm this flawless guy and I never make any mistakes. When I'm making videos talking about this stuff, it's to try to put myself in check so I don't make these tendencies that come naturally to me, bad tendencies, to kind of talk a little sideways out of my butt when I should be thinking of like, have I really played this pedal? Have I tried them all? Can I make a blanket statement and say they're all garbage except for this one? No, I can't. So be really leery when you hear people talking like that. If they're recommending something to you, ask them, is it on your board? And if it is, then say to them, well, I'm just curious, but how many delay pedals do you think, or whatever it is, overdrive? Like, get some type of depth of field on this guy. Is this guy really? Does he build, or does he collect? I mean, where does he have a leg to stand on, or is he just one of these guys that gets on a soapbox and kind of down like talks everything else down, like everybody else is a bedroom player, and Behringer pedals, they all suck, they're just for kids, they're going to break, you got to rehouse them. Well, if they suck, why would you want to rehouse it? And by the way, you're better off just building a pedal from scratch, like, than rehousing one. You should buy a PCB, the printed circuit board, and build it. If there's no PCB available, well, maybe there's a Vero, but what I'm saying is going through that process of like removing all the pots, you may lift a trace. And they're not really designed for that, but buying a PCB that is designed to put in a case and build your pedal is probably safer. It might cost a little bit more, probably not though, if you're putting it up against a full Behringer pedal. But that's a side thing. There's been a lot of in this Fuzztopia forum, and there's all this debate about that. People repeating themselves, and it's like I just see so much inexperience. So many people saying, well, "Just rehouse it," and it's like, no, don't rehouse it. Start from scratch and build one on a PCB that's made to be built into a Hammond box. Don't, if you bought the Behringer one, well, that's the price is spent on just auditioning this circuit. Put it that way. You'll end up with a better pedal if you build it yourself anyway. But I digress. As guitar players, we need to respect the time we're alive in right now. Very exciting time. A lot of the bad years behind us and all the good years in front of us. All the hating on digital, it's getting to the point where the digital is catching up. And when they start changing stuff about carbon footprints, the precious tube amps are not going to be a thing anymore. You're not going to be able to run unbelievably inefficient tube amps just because of your tone that you think is better. So this is why we need advancements in modeling. They need to be able to digitally replicate the sound and feel of these amps, so we can do it with using much less power. And that's just me. I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking this. I know in 2030 they're going to change a lot of stuff about carbon footprints, so I'm going off of that. But again, as guitar players, we just kind of need to, it all goes through what I'm always talking about. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds, or be nice. Just be respectful. And if you're caught up in the tone thing, I don't think anybody watching my channel is caught up. buying gear all the time. And I would hope to think that most of you, all of you, if you do talk on stuff, you talk reasonably and realistically. So, gear, it's a wonderfully exciting time to be alive. And we should welcome, embrace this technology. It's so awesome, it's only going to get better. The idea of something that can replicate that tube magic is very appealing to me, and I think we're getting closer to that. So the idea of buying one unit that has everything in it, that has firmware upgrades that you can consider like programming it yourself, and then when you kind of get sick of those tones after a couple of years, you could back that up and then reprogram the whole thing, adding more amp models, stuff like the Hotone Ampero, the Hot One, is it Hotone? I don't know. The Ampero, the new Moore, the GE300, GE250, GE200, that stuff. You know, and I'm a big fan of the old Zoom models, the G3 line, the older G3 firmware too. So that type of thing for me works really well because I'm an apartment dweller. So if you are like a big tube amp guy and you're typing some nasty comment to some guy, just pause for a minute and think. Maybe he's a guy that lives in an apartment, and the only way he can get his high gain fix is through something like a Helix. And those things are getting better and better and better at duplicating the tube things. So let's just be excited for these technological advancements. And if you want to try to fetishize this stuff and collect, and you have a Dumble with the $3,000 Klon and the Les Paul that's a 1959, I'd love to come to your house and try it, because I know it probably does have some kind of magic. I probably would wet myself. So I don't want to minimize any of that. Well, that stuff, yeah, it probably is awesome. What I'm saying is I'm here to take that $50, $100, $300 type gear and try to get it to sound as good as I can without casting judgment on anyone else. So looking forward, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. I'm going to be recording some music here in January. I've been ill. I had a chest cold and my ears plugged up. So we'll see how that pans out if I push it back a little bit. But I love making music. If you guys know me, if you know the channel, you know my relationship with that. And I'm going to do really my best to knock it out of the park this time. Hopefully write some exciting music and be able to impress myself, because that's who I do this for. And I'd love for you guys to experience that and enjoy it a fraction of the amount that I do. Me, I know how difficult it is to play the guitar with just a pinky and an index. So when I do anything, even tune the thing, it sounds amazing to me. So there's that. Anyway, you guys, be nice and peace.